We are very, very excited to be here, and I'm very pleased to see many of you again. I was with you when we were meeting in the morning for a good long period of time, and I'm very glad to be back. But I'm especially glad to be back to talk about Texas's opportunity in quantum. And one of the things that is really important to set in your mind is that we in Texas put technology to work. And that's what we're going to do with quantum. And we'll talk about that before. But before I get started, it takes a village, and we're just building our village. So I want to introduce you to my village mates. Rashmi, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Victor. Thanks for having us here today. I guess just like Victor, I've been around for a long time here, 25 years, and I have Ed for a long time as well. I'm a serial entrepreneur and now have a private equity firm along with a research lab that I run in Davidson. And that's how I got in touch with Victor with shared quantum interests.
Thank you. Joel Bies.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Bies. Recently retired from Ericsson. Been in telecom for the last 30 plus so years. And Victor kind of swooped me up to help him with Rashmi to kick off the quantum stuff. And my background's been around building ecosystems and go-to-market type stuff with products.
Joel, thank you. The newest member of our village, Vidant Mukherjee.
I'm helping her through that, or I call her mom. Yeah.
That wasn't a thing of free labor, but it didn't work.
Okay, let's get started talking about quantum. This is what we're going to cover. So you need to have some idea of where it fits in and where are we in the quantum journey. We're going to talk about what actually is quantum from a standpoint of putting it to use. Now, how many of you have had a chance to take quantum courses when you went to university? How many of you remember all that? Okay, fair enough. I'm in that same boat. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to talk about what the Quantum Economy Alliance, the Texas Quantum Economy Alliance, is going to do next to help Texas move into the quantum arena. And you're going to see that the approach that we take depends on science and technology, but is not focused on science and technology. It's focused on putting that science and technology in those systems to work. Let's go and talk a little bit about who we are. The Texas Research Alliance is a 501c3. It's been around since 2012, 2013. I'm the third executive director. I actually retired from Penn State, then I retired from UTD, and then I thought I was going to Home Depot to work on my house, and these fellows came and said, Victor, can you help us with the Texas Research Alliance? So sure, happy to do that. And I had no idea at that time in 2018 that we were going to be talking about quantum. But it's very, very exciting. And the whole idea here between what the Texas Research Alliance does is to build collaborations with industry, collaborations with municipalities, collaborations with public agencies to accomplish tasks and things that no single individual organization could do by themselves. So we've pulled together a number of those. We've had the tech hubs, the SMU Semiconductor Tech Hub. We had the logistics innovation engine that came out of UNT and 5 universities. We have the Texas Advanced Advanced Automotive Technology group that works with companies and universities to develop advanced technology in mobility. So building those partnerships is really what we have been all about for the entire time that I've been working in the Texas Research Alliance. One important element about the focus of the Texas Research Alliance is we start with a real problem. Somebody, some company, some municipality, some industry partner, some public agency has a problem they want to solve. And then we'll find the resources, we'll find the capability, the teams to put that together to help solve that problem. So that's what led us into this discussion. And I had the good fortune, at one point to be in a meeting with Rashmi. Now, people know me as Victor. My last name could be Jones, but it's Victor. Okay? Rashmi is Rashmi. So this was a natural bond that formed. And she started talking about quantum and what quantum was going to do. I said, yeah, I've heard about these things. And when I started to look into it, I said, Rashmi is spot on here, and we better get started because quantum is coming along much quicker than any of us ever thought it would. So we're moving down that pathway. And so what we're talking about now is building a statewide industry-driven coalition, okay, to help enable quantum-enabled growth. And when we talk about the quantum economy, what we're really talking about is the economy that we have in Texas. So we have finance, we have logistics, we have healthcare, we have energy, we have aerospace, we have space, we have manufacturing. Those are our verticals. So the question is, how can we help those verticals do much more than they are doing now? And the way to help them do that is through the integration of quantum computing, communications, and security into the work that they do. So Texas Instruments. Is Texas Instrument a quantum company? Well, they're really quantum alive because everything they make goes into the quantum systems that are part of the supply chain. There are huge problems that our aerospace companies, our healthcare companies need to solve. And so what we're actually going to do is to help them start with the use cases, okay, that will demonstrate the quantum capability and the quantum advantage, okay, for their particular activity. And what that means is that those companies that are quantum prepared and have the opportunity to build on use cases with collaborators are going to be light years. And I actually mean that, even though we're not moving close. It's going to be light years ahead of their competition. So as you can see, we're talking about workforce, okay, innovation government structures. We'll show this slide in a little bit that shows you how many dollars the federal government, state governments are putting into quantum initiatives. We'll talk about the new markets that will come from the development of quantum and quantum capability. So one of the key points I want to readdress that is the existing economic engines. We're talking about doing much better with what we focus on now. So when quantum is fully integrated into the Texas economy, things are going to move at incredible speed, lower cost, lower energy, and you're going to find that we're doing more in the same areas where we've been leading all along. So the question is, why now? Well, the reason is Rashmi, really. So Texas realizes that quantum is moving very quickly across the nation and across the globe. So the Chinese are very interested in quantum, as you might imagine. So are the Europeans, and so are Americans. But the key here is our organizational structure in our 50 states, okay, has really begun to rely on the states building capability to move forward. Well, Texas, with the help of a number of very interested parties, one of them was a company called IonQ. They're a Texas quantum public company. And a number of us, Rashmi, Victor, Joel, got together to try and help the Texas legislature understand how quantum is going to be essential to the future of Texas. And they passed just recently HB 4751, the Texas Quantum Initiative. And for all the right reasons, over here on the left, we're going to do workforce development. We're going to do attracting investments. Today, I sent her a letter of support to a faculty member at UT Arlington who recognizes that we don't have the curriculum for our computer scientists to write quantum code. And we need to fix that. So we're putting a proposal into the National Science Foundation to develop that curriculum and then export that curriculum all over our universities in Texas. part of the initiative is going to be a quantum advisory committee. And that advisory committee is going to do the quantum strategic plan for the state of Texas. They're going to provide the funding, the distribution of funds that will eventually come from the state of Texas. And they're going to provide guidance across our Texas efforts and coordination there. Now, the legislation indicates that that quantum advisory committee should have been selected by the end of the year. In talking to people who have gone through this process, they think April is probably a better target. So sooner or later, we're going to have that quantum committee. And our job here in North Texas is to be sure they understand the importance of the kinds of things that we are proposing to do for the state. And the Texas Quantum Initiative also has built in Qubit Fund. Qubit is an acronym, and I never get to remember what it is, but in any event, that fund has yet to be funded, okay, will be funded in the next session, and that will be the funding that will start the advisory committee's opportunity to receive proposals for the development of quantum science and technology, quantum economy activities, quantum applications, software development, and the like. But really, if you want to know why now, this is the reason. Look at the dollars there. And one of the things we know is that the federal government is fully invested in quantum. It's a national security issue.
Make it larger.
So if I make it bigger, the money gets bigger.
The numbers are.
Yeah, I apologize for that, being an archer. But in point of fact, so the Department of Energy is the federal government, the federal agency that has responsibility for the development of quantum initiatives in the federal government. But as you can see, the National Science Foundation, the $125 million in 5 national institutes. And those national institutes are in their 3rd year and just got refunded for another 3 years, and that's what that $125 million. Okay. The National Science Foundation, again, $14 million, $16 million in virtual quantum network. And then you go down to Maryland and Texas and Pennsylvania. And if you take a look at Maryland, they've just announced $1 billion, okay, for their quantum initiative. If you think about New York has already aligned $1 billion for a range of technologies that also includes quantum. So the key items here is, okay, we're TBD. I went down to Austin to talk to representatives of the governor about quantum. And they said to me, Victor, what would you do if we gave you $100 million to start the quantum initiative in the state? And I said, the first thing I would do is ask you why you gave the Space Committee $150 million and you're only giving quantum $100 million. So what we're really talking about compared to these other numbers is small numbers right now. So what that means is we have to collaborate. We have to understand where the advantages are for our Texas industrial partners and where we can build those collaborations to bring those funds into this initiative. And clearly, there are opportunities to do that, and we'll talk about that. So this slide is one that I can speak to, but when I get finished speaking, you won't know any more than when we started. But Rashmi can speak to this slide, and she'll be elucidating. So Rashmi, come speak to this slide.
I think Victor is the Victor is the one that has a doctor in front of his name. He can definitely explain that slide, but and thank you for the opportunity to talk through this. But that's okay. I don't think
I'll stand next.
Okay. Okay. So what is really quantum? You know, it's not just infinity and beyond, right? What it really is these are quantum mechanical properties of something that's really inherent in the way our world is built, the universe, our world,
and what have you. What we're really trying to do is not trying to use those properties, specifically superposition, which means something exists in the state of like many possibilities, actually infinite possibilities. And then there's another quantum mechanical property called entanglement, where we have non-local behavior. And the entanglement we are talking about here that we've been able to produce in our labs is more slightly more classical than the real quantum mechanical properties. The real quantum mechanical property of entanglement means existing in more than one location, meaning you could be in more than one position or location in time and space. But classically, this is where you exist today in this time. Coherence, that's actually what my lab actually works on. Much of my research work in the lab is on coherence. It's to maintain the quantum mechanical properties in a safe space so that it doesn't decohere or collapse. That's what coherence really is. When we talk about quantum measurements, actually measurement is more of a classical concept. So typically when we talk about quantum, we'll always be saying, this is quantum, this is classical. And measurement is actually a classical concept that when we measure in the quantum space, basically any superpositions that are being held, it does collapse your quantum coherence. But that is what we are actually using to produce something useful for us to be able to use, compute, to sense, to communicate, and even to secure the information that is being communicated. But the moment we make the measurement, of course, we get dropping into the classical world again. But with information from the quantum space, something that could not have been computed by classical systems. And this information we feel is the way the universe would have computed, right? The universe typically will always find the lowest energy state for a solution to a problem. So quite literally what I'm trying to say is we are finding solutions to problems from a completely different dimension, meaning a completely different perspective altogether. So usually when we talk about problems and solutions, we think of them as a spin state, two sides to a coin. If you are solving a problem from the same, we sometimes ask whether there was really a problem to solve, and which is why a lot of us solve certain things in a certain way. We have all these entrepreneurs, we have a lot of companies trying to solve the same problems. What is being solved here in Richardson, Texas is also being solved in Delhi, India, at about the same time, in a different way, right? So it's almost like somebody saw the spin of that coin, thought this is a problem. Somebody saw the solution on the other end and came up with how to solve the problem. When we talk about quantum, we're not talking about spin states. We're talking about finding a solution from a completely different dimension, where the problem is solved not just for a few, one or a few, or based on even if you're a global company, you're solving problems in a certain way. But when you solve problems in the quantum space, you're literally trying to solve the problem for everyone all at once. I don't know how many of you have actually seen the Oscar-winning movie "Everything Everywhere All at Once." Yeah, that was actually a quantum physics movie. A lot of people didn't understand what that was, but literally, it's about going into a different dimension, bringing back that information to the classical world, and saying, "This is how the universe would have solved it." So that's literally, how I explain quantum to everyone. And in a sense, like and how do you apply quantum back into our space?
So I kind of get excited about the opportunity to say these words. Not much to put them to work, but to say these words. And so in point of fact, where we are in the development of our quantum tools is that those of us who are not in the development of science and technology and quantum are going to be able to do the work we need to do so long as those folks who are building these things know all about the properties of superposition, entanglement, coherence, and measurement. We won't have to look under the hood for what we have going on. So when we talk, another way to think about this is quantum technologies, tools and the equipment and the techniques in order for us to compute, communicate, sense, and secure information in ways not achievable by classical machines, classical computers. One way to think about quantum computers, as Rashmi says, they solve the problem all at once. So think about a maze where a classical computer will, in a short period of time, exhaust every opportunity to go through that maze and give you a solution. A quantum computer will solve all those opportunities in one time and be done with that particular problem. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about these technologies and equipment. So I have a car that I bought in 2019, and one of these days I'm going to open the hood.
Yeah.
Okay. So use cases. When we talk about the opportunity to put quantum to work in useful ways, we're talking about use cases. Joel, you want to come and talk about use cases?
I can do it right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so anytime you're about to kick off and launch a product or industry, the best way to formalize it, make sure people understand what it is build the use cases, prove and show where the money is and what's going to happen and how it goes to market. And that's what we've done in these. These are examples of use cases for quantum, both in healthcare, life science, and like Victor was talking about earlier, logistics, aviation, supply chain, the security, energy, and infrastructure, which covers all the telecom side of stuff from that aspect of it. So that these are use cases. We're actually speaking with UT Southwestern next week about some of these use cases on the health side. So there's a lot of opportunity. This is the way people understand what you can use for, how you can use it, how you can make money on that side of it. So I don't know, Rashmi, if you guys have anything else you want?
I'll just say on a not just use cases that come out of compute, like basically building what a quantum computer can solve. If you remember what happened during the days of classical computers when they first came out, like when we had the mainframes and then we had PCs. Transistors was founded in TI and Fairchild. It transformed the innovations coming out of there, transformed many parallel industries. For instance, the printing press was never the same because now you had desktop publishing. I mean, and you could attribute everything to the transistor. Nobody could have seen those things happening because how it was applied, we don't really know just as yet how it's going to be applied. But innovation coming out of material sciences just to build quantum at nanoscale, atomically precise now, very, very small scale chips. That those innovations will come somewhere else just because we now have figured out how to do certain things. So these are just direct use cases out of what quantum computing can do, but it's not exhaustive. And we're just now, we're just at the cusp of something really huge. And that's why I keep saying it's going to be magnificent. We haven't even started imagining what can be done with this. We just know one thing for sure. The world is not going to be the same anymore again in less than 10 years just because of this. I know a lot of work is going and funding is going into AI, but there's something called the quantum intelligence. We refer to it as QI. AI is going to become obsolete once this comes around. And there are use cases for quantum AI, but really, we will come to this understanding that we really didn't need AI once quantum was already.
Rashmi, Joel, thank you very much. This is Joel's slide. One of the things I want to highlight is what he says on the bottom here. These are not theoretical experiments. They're near-term pilot-ready use cases aligned with Texas institutions and infrastructure for economic development and economic projections. Now, what is a quantum use case? Well, you have to find a project or a challenge that would benefit from quantum power computing, where you would get a large enough benefit so that you can apply the 2 to 3 years it takes, the size of the team, and the $3 to $5 million it will take to do a use case. So use cases are going on. There are partnerships with major companies. Bank of America has partnerships. J.P. Morgan Chase has partnerships. Toyota has partnerships. They're looking at particular problems they have that will benefit from the application of a quantum computer and a quantum use case. So one of the things that Rashmi and I and Joel and Vedant are working on is helping develop for our Texas companies a rubric that will help them decide what a good quantum use case might be. And so that'll be coming out probably in the next several months. So let's talk for a minute about what I call the elephant in the room, and you've all heard about it, quantum security, right? People have been talking about our adversaries harvesting data out of our databases, out of our systems, and warehousing it until they have the compute capability to break the encryption.
Harvest now, decrypt later.
That's right. Harvest now, decrypt later. Thank you. The point here is that IonQ projects that that's likely to happen in 2028 or 2029. Think about that. Okay. So when we talk about getting quantum ready, one of the things we're talking about is the security, and all of the companies need to be thinking about how that happens. Now, fortunately, in the United States, we talk about post-quantum encryption, okay? Nothing to do with quantum, except that it's very difficult for a quantum computer to break that particular encryption. But it's all classical mathematics that gives you post-quantum encryption. When we talk about quantum encryption, and quantum encryption is going to be incredibly important for the coming quantum internet. I don't know if we'll still call it the internet, but that's what we think about. So that's when we're really going to need quantum encryption, and that's where we're going to use quantum properties in order to secure those networks. And quantum key distribution, we're talking about that now, okay, distributes mathematical keys for decoding. And the coding and decoding, is classical math. Transmitting it uses quantum phenomena. Okay. So this is a very important issue for all of our major organizations, and my hope is that they're getting ready to focus on this if they haven't. So let's talk about what's next. Okay, what we think is next, and what we think is important for Texas. Yes.
Just a quick note on your previous slide.
Sure. Let me get that up.
NIST has already declared year 2030 as Y2Q, as the year of quantum.
Yeah.
And when an organization like NIST declares a specific year as Y2Q, you know it is serious.
You're absolutely right. And so wherever you work, wherever you partner, wherever you do networking, okay, ask whoever it is you're talking to, are you quantum ready? Is your Tesla quantum ready? Okay.
I can guarantee you that it's not.
Not close.
Okay. So this is our plan. this is what we think is really important for the state of Texas, and actually really important for any state, municipality, public agency that wants to move their economy into the quantum network. And I know that it's very difficult for you to read there, so let me, and I apologize for that, but let me get over here and read that to you. So we're talking about the development of industry vertical use case collaborations. Who are the folks who are interested in the quantum advantage in diagnostic imaging, where people are exploring use cases now? Let's get those people together in Texas. We have a huge number of healthcare institutions here in Dallas, Fort Worth, in Houston, of course, in San Antonio, of course, that can come together to help work on those problems. Pull those together, pull the aerospace people together, pull the airlines together for logistics quantum solutions. Get those groups together and begin using the rubric that will allow them to identify good potential solutions. And then let's go after the vendors, the partners, the state, the federal government, okay, to help fund some of those solutions. Engage the universities, okay, and industry teams for algorithms. Some of those algorithms will be able to be developed by the quantum compute developers, okay, but some of them are going to need support from our universities. So our universities have a natural role to play here. We have in Texas incredible university capability, but it doesn't match what they have in the East and on the West Coast in terms of the fundamental development of quantum. And that's one of the reasons why the important element for us is putting what those other folks have done to work, okay, so that our economy can benefit from all of that activity going forward. So the next one is to develop and execute those use phase proposals. So the way I see that happening is through these groups, these partnerships that we've gotten together, and we'll do it just like we did the University Tech Hub proposals that we've done here in Dallas Fort Worth so successfully. We're going to write proposals to the National Science Foundation, to the Department of Energy, to the State of Texas Innovation Fund. And we're going to get those proposals funded. Now, what does it mean to get it funded? It's not only the labor that's associated, the scientists, the engineers, the specialists in the particular area, but it's actually the infrastructure. So we're going to have a computer, a quantum computer that's appropriate for the particular challenge that we're trying to solve. And we're going to have to install that near where that problem exists. So one of the challenges we have today with quantum computers is they really need to be within 30 miles or so of the folks who are going to use them. Now, that won't always be the case, but in the near term, it is the case. So one of the advantages that we have in North Texas, we have the industrial base, we have the technical workforce, far exceeding the rest of Texas. And under those circumstances, I would expect a number of those computers, it might be a trapped ion computer, okay? It might be a classical silicon low temperature computer. It might be an annealing computer for minimization, excuse me. But whatever it is, okay, that proposal will include the establishment of that activity. Now, when you go to buy your quantum computer, Amazon, okay, it's going to take them 2 years or so to get that computer to you. So today, they're installing quantum computers at 100 qubits. In 2 or 3 years, they'll be at 256 qubits. Now, one of the interesting things about quantum computers is whenever you add another qubit, you double the capacity of the computer. Okay? So we talked about Moore's law for many years. Every 2 years, right? We're going to double capability. Now it's going to happen with quantum computers every several months. You're going to double capacity, double capability.
What will it have to cost?
Actually, it's not double. Actually, you add a qubit and it's increasing by that power.
Okay, so I was setting very low expectations here. Rashmi makes the point that the increase will be extraordinary.
So currently,
Okay.
computed as long as the system is in a coherent state. And once the website collapses, and that's what we work with. We reset and we.
What was the,
reset and
Rashmi, what was the question?
Yeah, the question was storage.
Right.
Would storage be one of the factors? Actually, even without storage, with about the number of quantum qubits that we are trying to get up, if we can get up to 1,000 qubits, we can map the entire universe. We can model the entire universe. Today, we can't do that with 1,000 bits. This is just binary. The quantum bits itself is also a classical
So does that
concept.
break planets?
What was the question?
Break planets?
Does that break lattice? It depends what modality of the quantum computer you're working on. One thing, obviously, we're not talking much about here tonight is China is way ahead in this. You know? And obviously, whoever gets to quantum first is eventually going to be dominating everything in the world. I don't want to get this into a scare tactic, but China is working big time in photonics. You know, their quantum is photonics. Whereas here in the United States, for some odd reason, we are going superconducting route. We're not doing photonics. Photonics is the fastest way for us to get to quantum capability because we don't have the background. But our focus has a lot in electronics, which is more electron-based. The superconducting is really tough because it needs really it needs cryogenics and very low temperatures. And while we save energy on the compute side, we are consuming even more energy trying to cool something down. China has actually worked on MEMS-based, photonic-based. They're actually moving ahead. In fact, you can buy a 38 qubit quantum computer and bring it home in China. But we are not there yet.
So with regard to, you know, the placement of the quantum computers, we have to access the vast amounts of information. What does that mean for our transport infrastructure? Right? Like our friend Joel, our friends in there, you know, 6G is not going to cut it, right? So, you know, terabyte throughput on your fiber, not going to cut it. You're going to be talking about exabytes or zettabytes on the data stream.
Actually,
30 miles.
we don't look at information the same way we do in the classical world. There is really no exercise things. Because of superposition, that is already computed in
And the computer is setting
exabytes
values.
equivalent.
She's saying the representational superposition doesn't need
Yeah,
exponential.
you're not
It
sending
doesn't
anything.
mean- So the way you think of information is not the same information in the
but-
quantum.
But there's still a classic von Neumann issue, which is getting everything into a space.
Yeah,
But to transmit, today our transmission, even though we're saying.
okay, so we're just going to use
transmission-
terabytes.
So the way we exchange information today is we take a message at the source, copy it, and send it to the destination. That's what we're doing today.
Okay.
But quantum, you don't need to do that. The information can exist in two places all at the same time. That's where we're trying to go. In fact, once we get there, you really don't need a transport.
Constituted rather than.
Exactly. I think it's just a matter of how you think of quantum. We still apply a lot of classical concepts to it. But today, when we talk about quantum key distribution, actually, there's really no quantum information being exchanged. We are just sending the classical key for it to reconstruct the message on the other side. So the message was never sent from source to destination, which is what that's the security it brings in.
No key exposure.
So there goes my 44-year telecommunication.
Yeah, I was going
So
to say.
that's what I meant. Once this comes in,
Network.
this comes in, everything we worked on so far is obsolete.
Wow. Okay, so where do we go take a class on quantum computing and notation?
I think you need more water.
Yes, right. Even if you're saying quantum next,
Yeah, so
can you do
This-
quantum?
This one, can we get the
I
microphone?
would be happy to, yeah.
The microphone?
Yeah, so,
When people are talking about quantum computers of certain number of qubits, like I think you mentioned 38 or something, those are the stable logical qubits.
Yes.
Because IBM right now has a Condor and their system 2 is over 1180 physical qubits.
Right.
But there's a big difference between the physical qubits, which can be unstable and don't hold their state, so to speak, and the actual stable qubits. What you want to aim for is as large a number of stable qubits.
Yes.
And just one more note on the PQC, our entire system of cryptography is going to come falling down once they reach 4,033 stable qubits. And I can explain offline why that's not.
So,
The number is important.
so the key here is stable qubits. And when we talk about qubits, we're always talking about stable qubits unless we're IBM.
and if I might add, the direction of the technology, it has to mirror how the universe communicates to it.
Yes, if you actually, very soon you come to the realization that the universe is a quantum.
So this is the arc, and Cisco, as an example, just to give it a state of tech, is Cisco is doing quantum entanglement. It's,
Well, not
There's
just
routers.
these computers, but everything in the universe is a quantum mechanical system, including even myself.
yes.
We just had to come to the realization that that's how we compute, that's what intuition is. And all that, so. Yeah.
So
But as far as qubits is concerned, actually qubits is still a classical concept, and what we're just trying to do is take the quantum information, kind of hold it in something that's more classical. The other side of it is we're trying to go to qubits, which is qubits is still kind of talking about 2 quantum states. Qubits is going to be 10 quantum states.
the challenge is whether we can arrive at a computational equivalent.
Exactly, but right now the problem is our errors, the number of errors, because when you're working with atoms and photons, things that are really small, in small fluctuations, vibrations, and it cause big vibrational errors. To hold it in an environment which is electromagnetic, it's like a Faraday cage with no electromagnetic radiation. It's really tough. So a lot of work is going into error correction.
Yeah, so
That's
drift
the-
is your friend in the time of synthesis, but phase coherence and equilibrium is really.
But then, some properties do not work for certain use cases.
Yeah.
But some of those properties do work for some other use.
Understood.
So
Yeah,
it's
I don't-
kind of it's like how you want to spend.
Question?
But just a simple one, how did someone in the integration manufacturing end of this get in front of the tidal wave that you're talking about? I mean, it's not ternary, it's not the photonics, it's way ahead of that, basically.
Applied science. Huh?
So the question really has to do with collaborating with all of the folks in your area so that we can find the opportunities and then pursue them.
That's what we want to try and do.
Yeah, so absolutely. So we'll reach out, we'll start a group around you, around that area, and we'll make these things happen. So this has really been a wonderful discussion and much appreciated. So let me just go on and say that this is our focus and mission as it exists today. You are at the very first presentation of the Texas Quantum Economy Alliance. So these slides will modify over time, but still really represent what we're thinking about and what we're doing. So problem-solving partnerships. As I said in the beginning, we're forming villages, and you need to get into one of those villages so that we can get you where you need to go in order to be involved with the progress and opportunities that are coming. And one of the things that we're also trying to do is to elevate the discussion about quantum across the Metroplex and across Texas. So one of the things that we've been very fortunate about here, excuse me, in Dallas-Fort Worth is that we've had a quantum conference here for the last 2 years. And the third quantum conference is coming up on the 28th of February, excuse me. And Rashmi is the driving force behind that quantum conference. We go to the next slide here. Rashmi, you want to speak to that?
Oh, yeah, thank you so much, Victor. So we started this conference 2024. At that conference, we had about 200 attendees that came in. Last year, 2025, Victor attended that conference. Actually, that's the meeting he's referring to. We're quantum evangelists, people who come to these conferences convert to the quantum. That's what ends up happening. But this year, we plan to at least have 500 attendees at the conference. This conference this year is slightly different from the last two, where we were mainly talking about the technology, policy, funding for some of the companies and startups in the space. This year, we are going to have demos of the use cases on quantum computers. We have INQ that's coming into the conference. We will be talking about policy, we will be talking about governance, we'll be talking about workforce development. So our universities are joining us at this conference. Amazon is going to be at the conference. We will have finance companies, telecom companies, CPG companies at the conference discussing their quantum strategy. And so the focus is very much around the applied quantum, this conference. And as Victor put it, Texas Research Alliance is actually sponsoring the conference. It's more about how do we take all this research, basically how do we bring the quantum down from stars on Earth and be able to use it to make this a better world.
Can repeat the question.
Yeah, the question is, what does a computer really look like? If we're talking material innovations, anymore like a classical computer. Well, actually, it's going to be a lot of silicon based. There are new materials, graphene, there's germanium, there's a lot of different.
Cesium, rubidium.
Yeah, so we experimenting with a lot of different materials just to look at the stability or what makes a stable substrate for us to be able to do some of these things. Eventually, it will still have to be rare earth based minerals that we're going to be using for this. You won't. Eventually, you won't see these computers because sometimes they need special environments. So they'll be in the cloud to connect to your own terminal to this. We may have quantum extensions. Eventually, that's what we are going to be building quantum end terminals. Once we are able to stabilize work with error correction, we may be able to build a quantum phone, but it may not look like this because we don't need these sizes. It's going to be very small, nanoscales. We're not necessarily talking about things like Neuralink and all anymore because it's the kind of problems that this can solve. I think the world has not even begun to understand. What is really the real problems. We are doing a lot of surface level solving with things like Neuralinks and things like that. But eventually, when this comes around, we will learn a lot more about ourselves because these computers can tell you what are the capabilities a human has, which we don't even know just ourselves. So. But to begin with, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, if quantum is going to displace," and I don't want this to be like a big frequency modulator here, but classical will stay because we have classical data, classical information, and still compute. Quantum is going to solve problems that classical cannot solve. So there is this problem. There is this computer science branch of computational complexity, which are NP hard problems. Today, our classical computers can handle it. Those are the first problems that quantum computers are going to tackle. Wherever you have the classical computer thing in hands, or would take 2 years to finish the computation. That's
Other question?
Yeah. All right, so you mentioned the transistor and how that eventually killed printing press and through desktop publishing and things like that. So I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So the fundamental unit is the transistor. All right, so the world you're talking about, what is the fundamental? We're controlling electron flow through a semiconductor by applying a gate voltage. So is there does that map to the world you're talking about?
Yeah,
Something like that?
so the fundamental unit is basically an atom or a photon. It can, we refer to them as bosons, which have no polarization on it, which is a photon, an atom. Ions, positively charged atoms. Those are, we refer to them as natural qubits. And there's synthetic qubits which are superconducting, which is still kind of revolving around the world of transistors with silicon, Josephson junctions that look very similar to what transistors would look like. It just allows the flow of energy with no friction. That means no heat, no thermodynamics.
So we're basically taking the concept of a transistor and plunging down into the atomic.
So something that has happened in this world is that we have been revolving around, in fact, I call this the electron economy. Electrons flowing through everything, including our devices, the energy flows because of electron, your batteries are storing power because of electrons. The problem with electrons is it's not a good way to move energy. It's not the same way the universe moves energy. The sun does not, the sun sends down photons, not electrons. But somehow our world economy is developed around electrons. So this is called an electron economy. Electron economy is not the most efficient because there's a lot, it loses a lot of energy and heat in thermodynamics because it works through resistance. Through quantum, we now have an opportunity to find alternate ways of moving energy, communications, all that stuff. In fact, I would say we're trying to move this into a photon economy after this, or an atom economy. We don't want to rely too much on electrons anymore.
So we're plunging down to the atomic level. We're still controlling the flow of something by some gate, something else.
So now once we plunge down to those levels, we start looking at non-localized behavior, where a photon can exist. We now start asking questions. If this same photon exists in two places, then what is it that we're really transmitting over fiber optics? Does it really need that transmission? Or can we always create two copies of things with the same information?
Yeah.
Beam me up, Scotty.
So,
Yeah, I know it sounds like a very Star Trek.
underneath that is the idea that what quantum services in the universal fabric is the distribution of matter and information in multiple localities to balance the universe. That's your
Yeah.
fundamental equation. We're catching up to that reality. Right? So when you think about this idea of trying to get down to the unit enabler transistor, right? Ron, can you stand up? Oh, sure. So when you try to get down to this unit, what is that unit that we're looking at as the device that will be in the engineer around? Right? So when we think about engineering, we think about this idea, and I was talking to a colleague earlier about the probabilistic universe, the unbounded universe to the deterministic universe. And looking at gradients, attractors, geometry, manifolds, gradients, rate emergence. And so when we think about that progress towards what is it that manifests everything that we're talking about and see we're finally getting to the point where we're getting to represent the universe as it truly is, which is really where quantum is. The superpositional state is the ability to imagine more layers of the universe and its unbounded qualities being brought into a manifestation state by somebody who says, I think, I am, right? It introduces a constraint, a curvature, and begins the possibility that determines flow. But getting down to answering the idea of what is it that Cisco is going to make that I'm going to be basically soldering together? I don't have that answer. I would say, you know, in tour, Rice University just I think last week, the tour chip. And the tour chip and hafnium, there's another layer there where they're doing the substrates. And they're able, even at room temperature, to maintain boundary layers that are separational to maintain 30 states on a room temperature chip in a NAND configuration. And the reason this is important to the industry is because it actually requires about 80% less energy to keep the chip going. But more important than that is this idea of being able to maintain and compute more states than a single classical state, the on and off state. And so when I think about hardware coming to it, is, you know, I think we're going to see hardware in silicon that is going to certainly create this idea of a representational model of the universe, which I got to say is going to be frontier. I'm not going to see an enterprise workload on quantum that is basically trying to figure out what I'm supposed to offer customers an enticement to buy, you know, buy them together. This is going to be from pure sciences, chemistries, or you know, biology, or you know, other elements of the universe that are bigger than just the day-to-day affairs that we can. Encryption, yes, it's a security issue. Sure, we're going to need it. I've been on the quantum committees in ONUG. Their feedback is it's not quite ready for prime time because quantum, to your point, 30 miles out, single point of failure, encryption is necessary, but it doesn't enter the mainstream and enterprise capabilities where it actually provides value add. Encryption, yes. Security, yeah. The idea of does it actually make somebody buy something on a shelf that they can buy, not buy? Man, I've got, you know, a platform that will do that already, right? So, but getting back to this idea of what becomes the unit of engineering, I'm going to see it in silicon, I'm going to see it in an algorithm. Where is the human place in trying to figure out what's actually put the soldering on, everything. I would say you probably have a much better answer than I do on where the tech is at.
No, that's excellent. Actually, I was just going to refer to the
Yeah.
that uses topological training. And that's never been done before, ever.
Okay.
You know, and it's basically, they found a different state of matter called
Yes.
which we didn't even know existed. Right? That's what I meant by the innovations that are coming through this is completely going to change the way what we do about it.
And I have to add one other thing. MIT published about 2 weeks ago, MILP, which is you know, machine learning interatomic potentials. And what they're studying is the idea that there's combinatorics that they're not aware of. They're seeing converge when they get down to a deeper level, but they don't have data.
What?
And okay, and so coming to the idea of quantum
mechanical stuff, we actually do not have data for why it does what it does.
Yeah.
We know that it settles into lower energy states, and that's how the universe would have solved problems. And that's what quantum annealers are. So right now we may not have a stable quantum computer because of the gate-based gate measurements that we have.
Yeah.
But quantum annealers are the most successful quantum use case today. They're actually making money. JP Morgan Chase, a company called D-Wave, Volkswagen, a lot of those companies are actually using their technology for optimization, like optimizations that are really tough to do on a classical. If you're looking at the stock market, the amount of fluctuations, you know, what makes their portfolios go up or down, what are the right portfolios.
Right.
The JP Morgan Chase on the back end is using quantum annealers to look for this right optimization.
The data and sensors that they have taken is just like interpolation on steroids.
No, so they have some different topologies that they're using. But it's basically multivariate problems that have too many dimensions to the problem. You feed all of those different variables to the machine, and then you let it settle. So there are things called global maximum, global minimum. You let it settle into its lowest energy state. The machine will go to its lowest energy state. At that point, you find out what variables are still existing at that lowest energy. That's your optimal solution. But we cannot explain why it went there, what's the data behind it. Yeah, like a classical computer would not have gone there.
The minimum is about conservation of energy.
Conservation of energy. Using the least amount of energy to get the most amount of work.
And so I'll make one last closing thing about the data. What MIT revealed is that in the data itself, the ability to define attributes that results in the geometry of the data. What is geometry? Geometry is the attributes that inform the combinatorics of different elements. And so until we can actually gain enough data, give it the proper attributes to define the geometry, this is really where the material science stops until that happens. But the potential of MLIP is to capture the data, generate the attributes, and then see the potential geometries in the combinatorics.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, we tend to be more comfortable in the deterministic world. We really want explanations to certain things.
If I might, the deterministic sounds so finite and binary. Right? It does. But what deterministic is the emergence of the constraints and attractors having enough effect through the manifolds and gradients to create a low energy flow to hit the ball. And
Well,
so,
I would say even
Yeah.
Einstein struggles with this. So,
yeah,
so we know all we are mortals.
Yeah. I just modeled that last weekend on the holiday. But having said that,
I'm very glad it's evolving technology. So how are you convincing, the corporations? Because we said these are big problems.
So
You don't have.
Yeah.
So that's where the scale of quantum, as I was trying to say, if someone is trying to solve, like a company is trying to solve a problem today, like I would have solved a problem, and I'd be like, I don't know, people that have the same problem as me. If I can find 10 more, then I know I have a good idea on smarter. That means I've just solved for the first 10, and I'm sure there are more that have the same problem. You're solving that from a level that you're able to perceive the problem. Solutions coming from the same level. Whereas quantum, actually, when you solve from this level,
Yeah.
you're solving for instance, you're solving the entire climate all at once. So only one agency in the world has to decide who wants to do it. And they do it once, and it's done. We don't have to keep coming back to it in many different.
What I'm saying is
Yeah,
that
it's-
from the business perspective, the competition perspective,
It's-
you have a
Yes.
big problem, and everybody's solving it the
It's-
same way.
So that,
So I think this percolates down all the way to business.
Yes.
And that's what we're looking for, new business models, because the old business models are not gonna work now.
but where do you get?
You need emergence.
That's why Victor's focus is on economy
Yeah, you get the payoff
and emergence of,
because your machine learning cycles.
yeah, once it's solved, it's solved. All you can do is enjoy it.
Yes.
Yeah, but the thing is, we have become the culture of toiling.
Again, for me, I'm an engineer, so for me, it's physical.
I
I don't understand the quantum.
There are engineers here?
That's see, we don't. They don't.
Oh, we could
That's why I
discuss
get
this
the
entire.
point, is what is the unit? If it's still an evolving.
That's why
technology.
quantum is a national agenda for many countries. I know, it's a country, governments that are trying to use quantum to solve a lot of problems. And eventually, it's gonna even out the entire ripple around.
Which one?
Yeah, this discussion is a great segue to a question that I had when you said that you're working with IonQ. Is your work with IonQ only because of their location? Is it a geo-proximity thing? Because there's at least two other companies who are Well,
No.
as a forefront, there is D-Wave and there is RGTI.
No, we're agnostic when it comes to companies.
I'm just one.
Yeah, so
Reflection,
Continuum,
reflection,
D-Wave.
there's Pascal,
yeah.
and
Many
I-
companies.
Brigadier.
Yes, so you're working with D-Wave and Brigadier?
Yes, so the plan is, so different modalities of different design. Bring in the right modality, the right use case, that's the match make.
So we anticipate many different quantum modalities here in Texas. That's your question.
Yes, I'm glad to hear that because I thought you were putting all your eggs in the IoT basket.
But the one thing I do
The
like about,
conference demo.
the one thing I like about the ion computer, the 100 stable qubit computer runs on the electricity of 2 home air conditioners. That I like.
So right now, actually, the multi-qubit fidelity in the market, if you look at who has the best fidelity, I can't, but we're not getting any commercial sales for, but for a recent time, though, when we study the different modalities, the most stable is
Sure.
I want,
When you
But
have
I hope you agree that it's moving down.
oh, yes.
changing.
So you can tell from the questions and from the discussion that this is all new and we all have a lot of learning to do. And we're setting about, as the Texas Quantum Economy, to help make that happen. And Rashmi's conference coming up on the 28th of February.
Please come to the conference. You're going to meet the movers and shakers of the quantum world there. And they're coming from all over the world. So
And it's gonna cost you $35 to go.
it's actually just.
One of the things that, since this is all new, excuse me.
Rashmi, who's your salesperson?
Since this is all new, I'd like Vida to tell you about our logo.
Is the conference for the whole day or few hours
The
or?
whole day, 8
It's
to
a
5.
one day.
One day.
Where's it at Saturday?
It will be here.
Could be in our article, we'll see.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Vida,
Yes, this is my first time ever speaking at least meeting on my phone. This is our logo. Our logo, I worked very closely with a graphic designer in order to kind of create this. It's meant to represent the Texas Quantum Economy Alliance's mission to turn quantum innovation into real economic impact. The atomic structure signifies advanced quantum technologies, while the outline of Texas places those technologies firmly within Texas's economy. The multicolored star reflects the diverse industry use cases such as energy, healthcare, finance, and communications, showing our quantum can be applied across sectors. Together, the image conveys TQEA's focus on developing practical quantum use cases that drive growth, innovation, and leadership in tech.
hold on, wait a minute. So let us know, talk about quantum every opportunity you get. Get in touch with us so we can form the groups that will solve some of these problems and lay out the next quantum use cases that we're going to do here in Texas. So with that, I want to thank Andy very much for suggesting this at the beginning and Ed for agreeing with Andy that this might be a good discussion. So
Absolutely.
appreciate the help. Thank you.